Um, it needs to be a broad consensus. You can't do that in closet, in closure, and then say, okay, we're going to tell everybody what happened. It doesn't work that way here, because what's going to happen is people are going to come and say, oh, no, you all can't do that. There's some very sensitive things, that have to do with long-standing traditions. Like my father used to collect counts around that key. Now you tell me I can't do it, okay? Then you have to tell me something else. And they're working with international organizations, but you're leaving the people behind.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that.
What kind of initiatives do you think that can work here in relationship with because you were talking also about entrepreneurship?
Yes.
And how can it be fostered?
Well, one of the things that we're meeting today with the Chamber of Commerce, and I wish you were able to be at that meeting today, because you'll get a better understanding of where we're trying to go. We're trying to work with groups like here, like this restaurant, okay? Where they're trying now to put up a small hotel here, okay? I believe that in order to develop this island, we have to work with the local people. In the past, we have developed the Bahamas by bringing in multinationals, bringing in people from away to build big hotels on the beach, 5-star hotels at some point. The problem with that is there is a huge disconnect between what it wants to do and what the community is capable of doing. So eventually, 3 to 5 years, those things fail. What I hope we can do here in Exuma is build small boutique resorts owned by indigenous people who are not going to get up and run away tomorrow if things get tough, so that we build a sustainable, and we were talking about, we build a sustainable economy over time, rather than, in 3 to 5 years jumping up to a very, very high level that we can't sustain, and then 3 years later we've lifted the local standard of living, yes, but also the local cost of living, okay? And now this huge mega thing that we did fails. The standard of living stays there, the cost of living stays there, but the return or the revenue disappears.
Yeah.
So now we have a huge problem, and that's been an ongoing problem in the Bahamas. The traveling public has changed. The man in the street is now traveling. The guy just like me, he's traveling, not the multi-rich anymore. These are people who don't have a lot of means, okay, and cannot maybe afford these big resorts and the cost of getting here. So if they can come here, stay in a place like this, have that right there, interact with the Bahamian people, get a Bahamian experience, I think that's much more sustainable than bringing in, like we did Four Seasons, for example, sticking it on a beach and saying, okay, you guys got to serve as a 5-star hotel, which we couldn't do. The largest drawback is education. Understanding what it is we have and how to interact with it. And that's what we haven't done. We haven't trained our people in the business of the process of tourism. How do you make it happen? We see it happen because we bring in a hotel. I go to work for a hotel. That's the only thing we think about, the job. You don't think about how you get this thing to work. How does it work? Okay. We're learning now. We're educating people. You see little places like this coming along. You'll see another one down the beach from me called Exuma Point coming along. So we're beginning. If you go to Williamstown, there's another little one called Gray's, I think it's Gray's Cottages. Okay? We're beginning to understand. We're trying to sell the idea of bed and breakfast, B&Bs, because that's another market that we think we can sustain. What I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see the Bahamas become a great success internationally.
Yeah.
But the Bahamian people become servants of that success. And I'll be perfectly candid with you, the black population, to get into this thing, because they're the guys that drive it anyhow. Their purpose is to make sure that I can have that beach the way it is all the time. Okay? I want that beach that way. I don't care what 90% of the people want. That's what I want. Okay? And so you set up an organization and you people it with your people. Okay, and you show the government that we can fund this, we can manage this, we can, and the government, of course, in a small country like ours, will say, please go ahead. Okay, so now you have the situation where the government is backing a situation that really doesn't reflect the true feeling of the local indigenous population. Somebody to come in and put in some decent marinas.
Some decent?
Decent marinas.
Okay.
There's not one decent marina in Elizabeth Harbor. Not one. You can't have a yacht coming and tie up against the mainland because of the weather. We can look for developmental companies. There are companies that do this kind of work. Why wouldn't government invest in it? In the infrastructure. Okay, that's all I'm asking. If government would own that marina, if that would be a public marina, that money will go into the treasury. Mm-hmm. Whereas if it's a private thing, we keep 10 cents on the dollar. Mm-hmm. The rest of it goes out of the country. It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And daily, more and more and more of the country disappears down the private thing.
Farming, that you were also in the conference mentioning that to have like farming here, like grow pigs and grow crops here. And I was curious about how you think that it can be done here, and if there is like if the people have if they will be willing to farm here.
There is farming, but as I said, on a very small scale. I think what has to happen again, we go back to the training. If we show them the modern way of farming, they're not going to farm like their fathers did. Mm-hmm. With their own money. They will farm with tractors and modern equipment, etc., and with the knowledge of what can be grown and that there is a market for the produce. So we have to show people, especially in these communities, how they can grow the stuff and then have it marketed so they can make money from it. Right now, it doesn't look like it's not a money-making proposition. Mm-hmm. It's not a money-making proposition. Why do it?
And you think it's possible?
I think it's very possible.
That it's like because the soil is poor. And
they say the soil is poor, but it's poor for certain crops. But for other crops, it's abundant. I mean, look at the coconuts. Mm-hmm. Coconut trees grow here like crazy. Pigeon peas grows here. Onions grow here. Best, biggest, sweetest onions in the world. Okay, we don't have a lot of arable land, but what we do have is productive. One of the huge problems for the destination like this, of course, is finance, finding the money. We need some sort of regulation put in place so that the local guy who has an idea for a business, once he's got his papers in order, he can go to a bank and he can get funding. Now, I know in the United States that they had to enact a law to force banks to go into certain areas and lend money in certain areas because they were redlined. Mm-hmm. Okay, you don't lend in that area. Okay, that's been true in the Bahamas for a long, long time. Certain populations have been redlined in this country, as far as I'm concerned, for a long, long time. But we have not done anything to alleviate that problem. So we say Bahamians are not entrepreneurs. Well, they're not entrepreneurs because they can't get access to funding. That's one good reason. Available through the IDB is that if you're buying American equipment, for example, then you're buying genuine American equipment, not something made elsewhere, but manufactured in America. You can get funding for up to 95% of the value of whatever it is you're buying, whether it's a boat, whether it's a truck or whatever. But you have to have documentation. You have to have a history. Well, our people don't know that. That's why we talk about the education. So one of the things I'm hoping to do through Chamber is to educate the local entrepreneur in how to structure your business so that you can qualify for this fund.
What kind of initiatives are you doing? In that sense, what kind of initiatives are you promoting now?
Well, we're through the Chamber of Commerce. We are going to try to provide advice, technical advice to business people. We have to really start from scratch using both the Resource Center and College of the Bahamas. We're going to have to start to get people through that. We ourselves are going to go around to different businesses to try and say to them, look, you've got to structure yourself so that you can qualify to get financing to these things. And then we want to walk them through the process to see how they do. Okay, we just can't tell them about it. We're going to actually walk them through the process. They are not indigenous people. They have concerns because they're coming from a larger economy or a more modern community. So they know these things. This happened somewhere else. So now I want to do it here. Okay, they banned eating turtles in Miami, so we can't eat turtles here. Okay? Although that might be part of it's like the Inuits with the whales. Okay, that might be part of the food source. Okay, I'm not saying we should, right? But we do things because we know how to do this because we did this over in America. Okay, mind you, we wiped out the conch in Florida. Okay, so now I come here, I don't want to see it wiped out here. But let's find some other way of doing it. You cannot tell that guy over there, you cannot fish conch here. You've got to say to him, here is what we're doing. We're trying to preserve this. So maybe we're going to create an area over here where we're going to build that as a conch base where you can go get conch. We know you can go there. Not in the park, okay, but different places. We need to start maybe saying to the guy, look, we'll seed this area for you. You can conch here all you want. This area here, you know what I'm saying? We have to understand what the indigenous people want. Because if you build without them, you're building on sand. Now it's, I don't want to go to school. Because they cannot see, there's a glass ceiling, and they see it. Yes, Nassau is one of the greatest resort destinations in the world. Okay, long time too. But if you go over the hill, there are hundreds of thousands of people over there living in conditions less than desirable. Okay, and what frustrates me is how can we, in a country that has a per capita income so high, okay, where we have this kind of thing happening with people, it simply means that there's a very small group of people making a lot of money. Okay, so when we spread it around, it looks like we're all making money. That's not true. The indigenous people also want to feel like tourists. So you begin to have some labor problems. You begin to have societal problems, all because people, for example, don't want to work. That is something that we cannot afford to do on Exuma. We should not allow to happen on Exuma. We know it happens. We've seen it. Why can we not now take a different trend here, take a different direction, and say, okay, rather than us, go for the big fancy thing like we're building in Nassau, why don't we simply work on developing a local economy? We can graduate 500 kids, 10 of which may go on to something else. The rest of them, nobody cares. We don't know what happens. Okay? We don't know. You go in our high schools. The education level in our high schools are way down. Why? Because kids see no option for the future. Why should I do this? I'm not going to do what Mama's doing out there. Why should they? We're not thinking and planning for our future. The frustration comes from seeing mother and father not going anywhere. Seeing mother and father unable to get a job. Seeing mother and father living in the same conditions 40, 50 years down the road. They don't see a way out.